Wilderness. It conjures up such images in our mind, but do we each have the same image? Have wildernesses always existed? What makes one wilderness unique from another? Today I want to compare and contrast two wilderness areas in Colorado in the U.S. I'll look at the agencies that manage them, how they meet the definitions defined in the 1964 Wilderness Act. I'll look at the similarities and differences from an ecological standpoint of view and from a social management point of view. And lastly, I'll look quickly at any lessons learned. So let's get started. I want to say right up front that I love wilderness. I also recognize that they are fraught with issues and controversy. It is within those areas of challenge where we can improve our interactions and understandings of what wilderness offers individuals and society. I need to distinguish the colloquial definition of wilderness, which is an experiential definition. When you go, it has a qualitative feeling about being in a wild place. Then there's the legal designated and legally bound area of capital W wilderness, which is a federally managed location. On September 3, 1964, the U.S. Congress passed the Wilderness Act, which established the wilderness and the National Wilderness Preservation System. The two locations in Colorado, Lost Creek and Mount Evans Wilderness, are capital W wildernesses. I'll go into the characteristics of wilderness later, but first let's see where these Colorado areas are and learn how they became federally designated. Both Lost Creek Wilderness and Mount Evans are located in the eastern section of Colorado, which is referred to as the Front Range. Lost Creek is located about 60 miles southwest of Denver, and Mount Evans is 40 miles west of Denver. Both of them are managed by the U.S. Forest Service, and both are located within the Pike National Forest. But the northern half of the Mount Evans Wilderness is located in the Arapahoe National Forest, so it is in those two different forests. Lost Creek encompasses 119,790 acres. Mount Evans has 74,401 acres. Both were set aside as protected land under the U regulations. Mount Evans in 1956 and the original Lost Creek Scenic Area in 1963. In 1966, Lost Creek Scenic Area was designated as a National Natural Landmark during the first Forest Service Roadless Area Review and Evaluation, which is Rare 1. Lost Creek received more comments recommending it as a wilderness designation than any other Colorado area. However, neither of our wildernesses were part of the original 54 areas designated in the 1964 Wilderness Act. Rather, they both officially became wildernesses under the Colorado Wilderness Act of 1980. Lost Creek gained approximately 14,700 more acres with the Colorado Wilderness Act of 1993. Lost Creek has 105 miles of trails, and Mount Evans has 84 miles of trails within their wilderness boundary. I am using notes. This is a lot to remember. How do these two areas meet the official definition of wilderness defined in Section 2C of the Wilderness Act? There are four main characteristics of any nominated land that must be met in order for it to be designated. The first element states the area generally appears to have been affected primarily by the forces of nature with the imprint of man's 1964 language work substantially unnoticed. In the 1890s, Lost Creek Wilderness was a potential dam and reservoir site. There are several cabins that remain. Those were built for the employee housing, but otherwise there's little imprint of human work. Or is there? Do the 105 miles of trails degrade the wilderness experience? Does a proliferation of social, which is the unofficial trails, and trail braiding, where it all just starts spreading around, how does that impact the wilderness experience? How wide a trail is too wide? Mount Evans Wilderness in the Arapahoe National Forest half, the northern section, is bisected by the highest paved road in North America, the Mount Evans Scenic Byway. How does the sound of traffic impact the wilderness experience? Preliminary results from my 2021 Summer Wilderness Survey show 42% of respondents rank human noise as one of the top 3 issues that negatively impact their wilderness experience. The Pike National Forest southern half of Mount Evans more readily meets the criteria for affected primarily by the forces of nature. However, if we take into account the coevolution of plants and wildlife with the Ute tribe on those lands, is the imprint of man truly absent? The second element of wilderness is that it offers outstanding opportunities for solitude or a primitive and unconfined type of recreation. Both our wildernesses receive heavy visitor use due to the easy access from Denver. Each wilderness also has locations that require greater access commitment. For example, the Goose Creek Loop in Lost Creek Wilderness has 22-mile gravel road access point. Given both areas are forested landscapes, solitude is generally available for visitors that want to put the commitment into finding low-use areas. The third element of the wilderness states it must have at least 5,000 acres or is of sufficient size to make practical its preservation and use in an unimpaired condition. Both of our wilderness areas easily fit this definition, with Lost Creek at 119,790 acres and Mount Evans has the 74,401 acres. The fourth element of assigning wilderness is it may also contain ecological, geological, or other features of scientific, educational, scenic, or historic value. Lost Creek has unusual rock formations that the Wilderness Connect website states are among the most spectacular in the entire Rocky Mountains. It also has the rare granite arches. Mount Evans has the 2 14,000-foot peaks, Mount Berstadt and the namesake Mount Evans. It also has Arctic tundra, which is very rare in the Arctic Circle. Additionally, Mount Evans has 2,000-year-old bristlecone pines. If you are hiking on some of these easily accessible trails on a sunny weekend, where would you feel that you were in a wilderness area? It is legally designated as a wilderness area, but there's a possibility it would not feel very wilderness due to overcrowding. Again, preliminary data from my survey reveals 79% of respondents at the Abyss Trailhead in Mount Evans stated their hike did not meet the Wilderness Act terminology of untrammeled due to evidence of people and wide trails. However, none of the respondents stated that it was a reason to not return. Is it possible we are shifting our tolerance of untrammeled? How do the similarities and differences of Lost Creek and Mount Evans play out from a management perspective? Ecologically, the trail systems in both the wildernesses are subject to soil erosion due to the heavy visitor use. Lost Creek Wilderness U.S. Forest Service website educates visitors to stay on trail even if the trail is wet or muddy to limit erosion. Oddly, neither of the Mount Evans Wilderness websites address the fragility of the Arctic tundra. in the wilderness. This seems like a really major oversight because Mount Evans attracts inexperienced hikers without well-established responsible recreation habits. Thanks to Mount Bergstadt, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, sorry Colorado, it is listed as one of the easiest 14ers to ascend. As Master Forest Service trail designer Loretta McKinley points out, tundra can take thousands of years to develop, and it can be destroyed in just 4 human footsteps. Heavy use in these wilderness areas also increases the social management challenge of discarded used toilet paper. Duped. You knew I was coming to this one. The Pike National Forest addresses this issue on both Lost Creek and Mount Evans websites, as well as on the back of their required wilderness permits, specifically stating to pack out toilet paper, tampons, and leftover food. Follow the rule: if you pack it in, then pack it out. On the other hand, the Arapahoe National Forest Mount Evans website does not list any specific regulations or suggestions regarding used toilet paper, nor is there any mention of required permits. Neither wilderness managed by the Pike National Forest mentions toilet paper on their trailhead signage. The National Forest on the Arapahoe side, the Arapahoe National Forest on the Mount Evans side, the trailhead status, I do not know what that is. The 1964 Wilderness Act states the overarching mandates for wilderness regulations. These oftentimes ambiguous rules must be interpreted at the national forest level as well as individual wilderness levels. There's a debate whether all 4 of the agencies that oversee wilderness, the U.S. Forest Service, National Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, and Fish and Wildlife Service, if they should have a more uniform regulations for all wilderness areas. It is my observation that Mount Evans Wilderness can serve as a role model for inter- and intra-agency collaboration, as it has, since 1994, been jointly managed as a single unit by the 2 National Forest and Grassland Management Areas. The 2 separate districts combine on decisions with South Platte Ranger District in the Pike Forest acting as the lead district. It's really disappointing, though, that these 2 National Forest websites do not present a cohesive strategy for visitor rules and regulations. Specifically, Arapahoe National Forest's website mentions packing out dog poop bags, and the Pike National Forest, both on the Lost Creek and the Mount Evans Wilderness pages, address packing out used toilet paper. Given my preliminary survey results in Mount Evans and Lost Creek, it's my conclusion that neither of the current management efforts for used toilet paper is adequate. 71% of the survey respondents said seeing 1 to 3 incidences of discarded used toilet paper, duped, at a campsite would be a threshold for not returning to the area. GPS data research that I conducted at 21 campsites surveyed in 21 campsites in Mount Evans and Lost Creek, 63% of those campsites had or exceed visitor threshold. As a more concerted and direct effort addressing rules and regulations for packing out used toilet paper could have broad implications for these issues of pollution as well yes, that is true. It would have broad implications for this concept of pollution, other issues of pollution, both for these wilderness areas that I've been talking about as well as other wilderness areas in the United States. Go outside, find a wilderness area, either if it is in your heart a wilderness area or if it is a legally designated wilderness area, and recreate responsibly and enjoy our public lands and the amazing outdoors.